The war in Iran has been the center of global focus for nearly 3 months. The disruption of global trade and rising oil prices revealed that Iran could wreak far more havoc than the West had predicted. Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz is the main weapon used in this war. But to understand why, we need to understand how history, geography, and global energy politics all collided to make this narrow waterway essential to modern civilization. Today, we're going to explore how the world became dependent on Gulf oil, why the Strait of Hormuz became the center of global power, and how the current war has disrupted supply chains worldwide. The Strait of Hormuz is a 21-mile wide passage between Iran and Oman. It connects the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean, making it the only exit for every tanker leaving the oil-rich Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and more. Only two narrow shipping lanes, each 2 miles wide, are deep enough for supertankers. These supertankers can carry massive amounts of crude oil, making them the best option for oil companies looking to maximize their profits. This geography ensures that whoever can control the strait can have a major influence on the global economy. In the Industrial Revolution during the 1800s to the early 1900s, the world switched from coal to oil because it was easier to transport, more energy efficient, and became essential for engines, ships, and later aircraft. The first oil ever discovered in the Persian Gulf region was actually in Iran. In 1908, a British-owned oil company discovered the Masjid Suleiman oil field in the modern-day Khuzestan province. In the following decades, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and other countries would also strike oil. This led to a period of Western-owned oil ventures in the region that were naturally exploitative and relied on oil concessions to maintain business. During the Second World War and the Cold War, oil became a strategic military resource. The US and its allies built their entire energy system around Gulf oil. By the 1970s, the Gulf supplied over half the world's exported oil. After the 1973 oil crisis, the US made a deal with Saudi Arabia that still exists in some shape today. Saudi Arabia agreed that oil would be priced in US dollars, in exchange for a US guarantee of Gulf security. Soon after, US dollars became the global standard for oil purchases. This meant that any oil imported country had to hold and spend US dollars on a regular basis. This led to a huge, steady foreign demand for the US dollar, which turned the US dollar into the global powerhouse of currencies. However, the US was now strategically and politically committed to maintaining peace in the Middle East to keep the benefits that the oil trade brought to its economy. After emerging from the devastating conflicts of World War II and the Korean War, China, Japan, and South Korea experienced a period of rapid industrialization, relying on Gulf oil to literally fuel their economies. Today, according to the Congressional Research Service, the Strait of Hormuz carries 27% of the world's maritime crude oil and 20% of the world's liquid natural gas. This is the key reason why the world cannot function without this strait. Modern economies were built on Gulf oil. With the Strait of Hormuz being the only option for most of this oil trade, the world relies on its continued access. However, this conflict isn't the first time the Strait of Hormuz has been a flashpoint in a war. In the Iran-Iraq War during the 1980s, both sides attacked tankers. In 1988, the US Navy sank Iranian ships in Operation Praying Mantis, and as early as 2019, Iran seized oil tankers during US sanctions. Iran's strategy is simple. If Iran is threatened, the world's oil supply becomes threatened as well. According to CBS News reporting on May 8th, the US launched self-defense strikes after 3 Navy destroyers came under missile and drone fire near the Strait of Hormuz. The military threat that Iran maintains in the Strait of Hormuz has caused shipping companies to effectively halt their operations. In turn, crude oil prices have risen to well above $100 per barrel. The Strait of Hormuz goes beyond just oil. Its closure also affects food prices. This happens because fertilizer production depends on natural gas, much of which comes from Qatar and passes through Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz's closure causes inflation to spread worldwide. Energy is the foundation of manufacturing, transportation, and agriculture. When energy prices rise, everything rises. Iran's coastline dominates the northern part of the strait, allowing Iran to use its geographic position to deploy anti-ship missiles, fast attack boats, drones, and sea mines. Iranian officials have called the strait a strategic weapon, equal to nuclear deterrence. Threatening the strait is Iran's only way to pressure the US. Giving that up would effectively be surrendering for Iran. If the strait remains closed, oil could surge to nearly $200 per barrel. Some of the world's richest economies would face energy shortages, and food prices worldwide would rise. With this looming disaster, it's probable that the US may escalate militarily to reopen the strait. Clearly, the Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway, it is the global economy's pressure valve. The world relies on Gulf oil because of history, geography, and decades of geopolitical decisions. And all that dependence flows through a narrow passage between Iran and Oman. In the current war, the Strait of Hormuz has become the place where energy, military power, and global supply chains collide. Understanding this history explains why the world is watching this tiny stretch of water so closely.